In this comparative study, I will be analyzing the film elements used by two films and how they use these elements through the genre of black comedy. These two films being Heathers, a movie from 1988 directed by Michael Lemmon, and Promising Young Woman, a 2020 movie directed by Emerald Fennell. According to Studio Binder, black comedy is a comedic style that makes fun out of ordinarily taboo topics. While it is typically used for mere shock value, it can also be used to provoke serious thought and discussion about subjects people may not want to talk about otherwise. Both of the films I chose use this genre to their advantage to offer a point of view on their shared topics, suicide and rape. Placing a filter of comedy allows the films to be more accessible. By analyzing societal and film norms through the use of dark comedy, Heathers and Promising Young Woman are able to bring attention to serious topics with a more digestible look. Heathers was made in 1988, and the movie centers around protagonist Veronica Sawyer, a worker bee for her school's most popular clique, the Heathers, who she later hunts with mysterious new kid JD via suicide notes. Historically, the social culture of the time involving teens revolved around the subject of suicide. According to Washington Monthly, in the 1980s, analyses of national vital statistics reports revealed that suicide rates among teenagers tripled since the 1950s. Without the already dramatized news that teen suicide rates are rising, the movie's influence would be unclear. Compare this to Promising Young Woman, a film released in 2020 that was directed by Emerald Fennell that deals with the same issue as well as another. Following the suicide of her best friend Nina after she had been raped while intoxicated, Cassie Thomas spends her life baiting men in clubs with her supposed drunkenness to confront them for trying to take advantage of her. This movie is set in the year 2020, and its influences are clear. The Me Too movement, a social movement that fights sexual assault, abuse, and harassment, gained popularity in 2015. The movement's impact on Promising Young Woman is clear in how Cassie chooses to out the men she lures rather than doing something more fatal like Veronica and JD. In Heathers, colors through costuming are used as a primary representation of the characters' dichotomies and what this does for the genre. The head of the Heathers, Heather Chandler, wears exclusively red. Passion, power, strength, and love are some connotations of this color, and it's obvious in the movie how Chandler embodies these traits and is later targeted for them. Heather McNamara is represented by the color yellow, which can be interpreted as cowardice, loyalty, and friendliness. McNamara's kinder nature is often the cause of her being stepped on and later her attempted suicide. The third and final Heather, Heather Duke, is seen wearing green garments, a color that is associated with ambition, jealousy, and greed. Her color almost serves as foreshadowing, seeing as she seizes power in the third act of the film by claiming the color red after envying Chandler's power.
First you ask if you can be red, knowing that I'm always red.
In this movie, color is used to show both personality and shifts in power. The genre of black comedy is about making light of dark topics, so showing who these people are in an almost blunt way is quite ironic because of how obvious these people's intentions are, such as JD and Duke. The color and the mise-en-scène of Promising Young Woman tell the audience a lot about the film. There is a clear chasm between the two worlds the main character flits between, her pink daytime job and her shadowy and red nightlife. In an article from the Los Angeles Loyolan, Bluff editor Gabby Jekyll expresses the following. Writer and director Emerald Fennell wraps the macabre in a candy-coated color palette and douses it in a heavy serving of comedy. The set design reflects this divide, seen as Cassie's day-to-day takes place in a cafe full of sweet pastels, but her night spaces are dark with a red focal point. In one of the film's first scenes, she is draped dramatically against red leather seats, showing how her surroundings are not sweet but sinister. Later on, red can be seen again in the light above Cassie's head during a confrontation. The red light above Cassie's head shows her true intentions of exposing this woman just like the men in the clouds for treating her friend's trauma as something inevitable and just. The humor of Cassie's surroundings lies in the fact that the mise-en-scène deceives the audience. Her pink spaces suggest innocence, but her red spaces suggest vengeance. The black humor of these color choices and costuming and sets comes from the irony of them, and how both movies manage to subvert expectations by making things almost blatantly obvious. This lets the films better discuss the issues they face, since the audience could see the clear division of characters and their worlds. Where these two films contrast is in how the characters choose to deal with their tragedies. In Heathers, when the adults find out about Chandler's suicide, the school board jokes about it and doesn't take it seriously whatsoever. The only teacher who seems to care at all is Miss Fleming. Miss Fleming turns these suicides into a spectacle for news outlets, who frame these horrible deaths as a means to bring the community together. The yearbook of Veronica's school also wants to make a spread dedicated to Chandler, and they tell her where they plan to put her suicide note on the pages.
It's more tasteful than it sounds.
Veronica exclaims how inhumane and disrespectful that is, but like Miss Fleming, the students can only see the spectacle they want to create, showing their one-dimensionality. Suicide quickly becomes a sensation in the film. The fake suicides that have been occurring have infected the minds of the school's teenagers by making the idea of suicide something acceptable. This question of normalizing suicide relates to the genre of this film, since this is a very serious issue, but it is rarely taken seriously by the characters besides Veronica. The movie uses this disinterest to bring humor to these situations, by showing how joking about them doesn't negate their importance the same way ignoring it does. Unlike the news outlets in Heathers, the rape and suicide in Promising Young Woman is kept secret and is rarely talked about by anyone except Cassie. So in contrast to Veronica and her hiding the spectacles, she takes action against this untold injustice to out those involved and make her own spectacle. With a past peer from college, she questions her about what she knew of Nina's death. Later on, the peer comes across a video of the rape and shows Cassie.
You don't have to watch it. I really wouldn't watch it. But, I don't know. Do whatever you want with it. Just leave me out of it.
The woman wanting to stay out of the situation further solidifies how this crime is hidden. It's shameful and grotesque, and not nearly as trendy as something like teen suicide in the 80s. Seeing as the Me Too movement has sparked more sensitivity and awareness within society, it's logical for people to want to steer clear of these situations, but it doesn't make them any less guilty. When Cassie confronts Nina's rapist, she takes much more dramatic action with her confrontation.
Your name all around her. You should be the one with her name all over you.
The rapist, like everyone in the film, wants nothing to do with this crime, but Cassie wants to make a spectacle of him and his actions. In these scenarios, our protagonists are clearly on two different sides of the same coin. Both are perpetrators of their own crimes, but one wants to hide when her actions are sensationalized, and the other wants the spotlight to finally unveil what's been kept secret. In both situations, how people in the media treat these issues just shows how patronizing they have become, highlighting the point of black comedy movies, to shine a light on these subjects. In Heathers, the stereotypes of the movie are clear from the start. All tropes come from the characters themselves, a fact that is quite similar to how Promising Young Woman treats its own chess pieces. In Heathers, the hierarchy of the school is obvious and almost cliche. The queen bee is cruel and alluring, the brunette is jealous of her, and the third is a dumb blonde cheerleader. This film knows the audience is aware of stereotypes, and uses it to its advantage by cracking jokes on these cliches. When McNamara tries to kill herself, the whole scene is treated as a joke.
Everyone jumped off a bridge, would you? Probably.
The humor here comes not from McNamara being suicidal, but from the ridiculousness of the situation. Teardrop teens say it best when they describe this scene. Heather McNamara is the dumb one in the titular trio, hardly able to bypass childproof caps and willing to follow others because she doesn't know how to think for herself. She is an exaggeration of a real person, which makes it easy for us to laugh at her situation. Promising Young Woman is similar to Heathers here because its stereotypes come from the same place, cliches and characters. The first instance of this is the nice guy trope that nearly every man uses in this film to try and justify their actions. Study Breaks defines this behavior as the following. The nice guy's refusal to recognize women's autonomy affects everyone, and while he may think himself to be a gentleman or not like other guys, he is really a wolf in sheep's clothing. All these men want from Cassie is her body, so their long-winded speech about how overlooked they are is quite humorous to the audience. Further down the line, Cassie confronts the dean of her college who kept Nina's rape a secret. She plays into the stereotype of a sympathetic authority figure, but quickly derails.
I have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
The humor here is ironic, seeing as the audience hoped she would be understanding, but sadly still chose to do nothing. Promising Young Woman uses its stereotypes to explain their perspective that any person, both men and women, can do anything. The humor here is that it's ironic because the viewer should have expected these things to happen when the movie's about such a severe topic, but they don't because of the mental perceptions they already have about these archetypes, showing this film some similarity to Heathers and how that movie addresses its characters as well. In conclusion, both these films use the genre of black comedy to perpetuate their perspectives in both different and similar ways. But Heathers and Promising Young Woman bring attention to the fact that real societal matters can still be furthered even in a genre with comedy in the name.